Hi, everyone. My name is Claudia Figelman. I'm one of the education reps here at Visual Sound. I am here to welcome you to our webinar on taking your students on virtual field trips. Like many of you, I am sick of my four walls, so I'm looking forward to today's presentation. A little bit of housekeeping. We ask that at some point you put your email address in the chat function. We're just trying to capture, make sure that we have you in our records. We can get you additional resources if you'd like. And that's how we do it. So any questions? If anyone has any questions, first of all, thank you for attending, and I'm going to turn it over to Corey.
All right. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our virtual field trip session today. So a lot of you, as Claudia mentioned, are probably getting sick of those four walls, and I'm sure your students are as well. So the goal of today's session is to talk to you about different things you can do with your students, and then also different things that your students can do for themselves. So I'm not sure if you have tried a few of these before, but I'm going to be showing you some resources of making your own virtual field trips as well. So the first thing I want to talk about is what exactly do you want to do when we're talking about a virtual field trip? So yes, you could take virtual tours. I know many of you have probably used things in your classroom like VR goggles, Class VR, Google Expeditions, all of those type of things. But obviously your students don't have those goggles at home. So can you still do that when you're not in the same room and you don't have that virtual reality experience? The answer is yes. It is slightly different, but it is functioning. Other things that you might do virtually that you would normally just do in the classroom are things like read alouds, um, things like show and tell, having a guest speaker come into your classroom. Well, you could have a virtual guest speaker come into your Google Meet or your Zoom. Pen pals, you can connect with teachers from other schools and your students can communicate. How is quarantine in Pennsylvania different than quarantine in Italy or in California, Australia? You could find other classrooms and other teachers and you can connect your students beyond the four walls. Some other things that we're going to talk about today are live shows. I actually just found out about one yesterday. This is a museum in Japan. And what this museum is doing now, unfortunately, when you try to translate their actual article, it is not translating, but there is a separate article in English about it. And what's happening is this aquarium in Tokyo, they need their animals to have human interaction because the animals are not getting used to it. And when the aquarium opens back up, there's going to be issues. So what they've done is they have set iPads up next to their tanks and they are legitimately saying, call our fish, call our eels. Let your students just put their face up to the aquarium wall and visit our animals. So again, this is an aquarium in Tokyo, but there are aquariums and zoos in America that are doing the same thing. So you have so many different options to take your students on these trips without ever leaving your house. So the first thing I'm going to talk to you about is Skype in the classroom because Microsoft has this amazing database that makes it so easy for you as a teacher to figure out exactly what you want to do with your students and work with them. So if you go to this education.skype.com, you can set up a profile for yourself. And what happens is the database is going to automatically translate your time zone. So you don't have to think, oh, if they're in California, that's 3 hours behind me. Doesn't matter. Whatever time is showing on the website is already translated to the time zone that you put in your personal profile. So when you come here and you find activities in classrooms, what you can do is you can find guest speakers, virtual field trips, collaborative projects, all these different things. Now, when you do these guest speakers, everyone on the Skype in the Classroom database has volunteered. They are all free. They're not going to charge you for their services, but you can find authors, you can find zookeepers, you can find park rangers, so many different people that are just willing to come into your virtual classroom and talk to your students. You could also, again, find those other classrooms for things like pen pals. Now, the Google Art and Culture, this is one of those things that I was talking about that if you have VR goggles, it's more immersive, but you can still access these virtual experiences without it. So if you come into the Google Arts and Culture website, you can select museums, you can select authors, you can select cities, and you will be able to get 360 tours. Now, with the VR goggles, you could obviously just hold them up to your head and turn. On a computer, you would use your mouse to kind of rotate through the image. So again, it is possible and it does work. It's just not as immersive. Moving on, we're going to look at NASA. So right here, this is actually an outdated slide because this was from the first time I did the virtual field trip presentation, but there is another event today. And today's event is going to be Scott Kelly, Mike Massimo, and John Roku. Not going to lie, I'm not sure who John Roku is, but I have heard of the other two guys. I do know who they are. And this is at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time tonight. They are going to be doing a live chat with students, talking about these books that they published and then answering questions. As you can see from the Eventbrite, it is being hosted by Penguin Random House, but it was advertised on NASA's website. It was advertised on, as you can see, the Intrepid Museum in New York. So all of these events, all of these activities, you could easily find just by looking on Twitter, looking on Facebook, talking to your fellow teachers. Follow the hashtags. You will find amazing stuff for your students. So Google Earth is the next thing I wanted to show you. And Google Earth is another 360 view. But what's really cool is some of the features of Google Earth that people don't know about because they normally just go to Google Maps. Jess, are you not able to hear me? Can anyone else not hear me? Or obviously, if I'm asking, you won't hear me asking. Can anyone hear me? If you want to type it that you're hearing me, I feel bad if I'm suddenly just talking to myself.
Corey, you're fine.
All right, thank you. Perfect. So as you can see in Google Earth, you have the ability to do time lapses. And this is a GIF that I made of the time lapse of Philadelphia from 1984 to 2018. And what happens is they are using satellite imagery and they are just taking one snapshot from every year and putting it into this animation. And you could really see how the town changes. If you were to, and again, this is Philadelphia that I'm zoomed over. If you were to go into Google Earth and zoom over the polar ice caps, you could see a time lapse of how those ice caps are melting. You don't see that when you just look at a still picture, but when you look at this animated time lapse, you really see the changes. You can go to an area that used to just be a desert and is now, like, for example, Las Vegas. Okay, that's been there over 20 years at this point, but you could see how something goes from a desert to a bustling city. So your kids can really see this architecture, this cultural shift, the natural shifts, all of these things using these time lapses. So Google Earth is a great resource. They also have some pre-made lessons. As you can see, this screenshot says the geometry of sustainable architecture, and it was created by Media for Math. They are talking about surface area, volume, ratio, all these different things that you can do with your students, talk with your students, and give them these experiences, take them on these tours of different cities and how these different buildings are being built. We've seen these amazing skyscrapers going up in Dubai. We've seen the Comcast Tower go up in Philly. The new replacement for the World Trade Center, one tower going up in New York. All of this architecture, you can take your students on virtual tours. So again, this slide is just talking about what I was mentioning before, the aquariums. You can check out Twitter, you can check out the Facebook pages. Yes, all of these resources I'm telling you about right now are 100% free. I am showing you now, I mean, for example, like the Philly Zoo and the National Aquarium in Baltimore, they may ask for donations, but they're not requiring them. As you can imagine, they're going through the same financial crunch as everyone else. So just like any other nonprofit, they are going to ask for donations, but they understand that people aren't always going to donate. So now we're going to talk. Yes, the this video is being recorded. It's going to be uploaded to YouTube. I will also be linking it on our bit.ly. So let me put that in the chat for you really quick before you leave. So it's bit.ly/visual sound 031. And that resource has all the videos and all the links to resources that I've been showing. So now we're going to talk about creating virtual field trips. And when you want to create a virtual field trip, there's so many things you can do with your students. One of the things that I like to do when I was in the classroom is I would have the students create their own virtual road trips. I would give them a budget. I would even so much as give them, and I wouldn't make them go research this part, I would give them a list of 3 cars with the gas mileage for the car. So if they want the Lamborghini, they're getting 8 miles to the gallon. If they want the Tesla, they're going to get 50 miles to the gallon. So I would list like the little cars, give them the miles per gallon, and also I would give them the weekly rent. So I would pretend it was a rental car. So I gave them the weekly cost of the car, the gas mileage, and the car type. And they would have to figure out their road trip. They'd have to budget, find places to stop. And what I'm going to show you is on Google Maps, they can actually build their road trip. They can design the map, put their stops using the little fake thumbtacks, put pictures, videos, information about the stop, everything. So it is a great resource. You could also have the students the same way collaboratively work on the map. So Google Maps, mymaps.google.com, is just like any other Google Doc in Google Drive. So you can have multiple students working on the same map. They can share with each other, they can show it to each other, work on it together, all of those type of things. I'm going to skip the green screen and go back to that. I put that slide in the wrong order. I apologize. So this is my maps that's on the screen right now. And as you can see, it allows you to create these custom maps, and the maps automatically save into Google Drive, just like any other Google file. So what happens is you would search for something. And as you see in my sample, I search for the Liberty Bell. And on the bottom, it says add to map. Once they click add to map, it is going to add a new place directly in their personalized map. Once they've added it to their map, instead of just seeing the details here, they get it to look like this. Once here, they can click the pencil, they can click the camera, and they could edit the entire detail of that location. Now, this is only changing on their personal copy of the map. It's not changing on Google Maps. It's not like Wikipedia that when you edit one thing, it changes for the whole world. It's only going to be on their copy. But they can put custom pictures, they can put custom videos, they can put custom names, details, all of that. It keeps the latitude and longitude. You can't change that. But again, this just gives them that opportunity to build out their own map. If you want to take it a step farther, Tour Builder, which is also part of the Google for Education, actually lets them create these animations. So when you do it on Tour Builder, it has your starting point and you go through all the different points. And you can see as you go to the next one, it actually animates zooming out, following the path, and zooming back in. So your students can then create animated field trips. Sometimes, depending on the locations they're going to, there's 2 different things that can happen. Some images are 4K quality to the point where you feel like you're actually flying a drone, and other images are blurred out and impossible to see. The images that tend to be blurred out are national monuments, government facilities, Disney World. As you can get from the hint, places that have security risks if you were able to see that clear of a digital picture from the sky. Other locations, like I said, you can get 4K quality. You could fly into the Grand Canyon. It is incredible to do. So all of these type of things in Tour Builder really let the kids do these animations. There are built-in tutorials for how to do it, but it is very much point and click. Your students will be able to figure it out pretty easily. Just like other Google Docs, they have the ability to share, create new ones, all of that type of stuff. They can even import their Tour Builder into Google Earth and have a fully 360, feels like an airplane as the Earth rotates to the next location. So all of this is the different options that are available. In Google Earth, this one is a lot more complicated. You can create global tours. I would not recommend using this one. I want you to be aware it exists, but there's a big learning curve for this one. It is much more difficult for how to do it. However, when you are in Google Earth, if you notice this one that looks like a little ship's steering wheel, that actually has some other pre-designed virtual tours that you can take your students on. So right now it is 11:45. I am going to open this up for questions. And if there aren't too many questions, I could always take you out into the websites and kind of walk you through the steps of how to do stuff. If there's a specific one you're interested in, I would like to walk you through those specifically. So please come off of mute to ask your questions, type them in the chat box, whatever is easiest for you. Oh, and I should go back to my green screen slide that I skipped a second ago. All right, so I'll answer the question from Roger and then I'll talk about the green screens a little bit. So the most popular among the students, I would have to say would be Tour Builder, because again, it gives them that animation. It lets them give details, facts, all of those type of things. Projects that I've seen people do with Tour Builder is if they're in high school, they might do like their virtual college tour. So they can start here at their school and then they go, for example, most people who do tours of colleges start local and then maybe fly to a farther college. So they might go from Philadelphia to Penn State, from Penn State to NYU, then they might fly to UCLA. So they can actually like take their tour, put a couple of facts about the school, whatever you think as the teacher they would want to be looking into before selecting their final college. Put in the facts, they can share it with their classmates. So, maybe one classmate's going to tour the schools of Pennsylvania, one classmate's going to tour the schools of New Jersey. So that is definitely the Tour Builder is a really good one. You will also find that some colleges actually do have virtual tours as well. So the same way that you can go to the zoo and the aquarium, you can go to the colleges and see the tours that they're doing for their students, for their prospective students. So the reason I had a slide for green screen and I skipped it because I put it in the wrong place, but green screening is another great option for students. It doesn't necessarily have to be a green screen. They could be standing in front of a solid color wall. So as you can see, this is a young elementary school child in this GIF, and they made one of those old-fashioned cardboard dioramas, and then using a green screen, they tore their own diorama and narrate it. So that is definitely a fun option for something your kids can do. You could also have your kids practice newscasting. So maybe you have them, sit in front of a blank wall, talk about something that is going on in the news or talk about something that they're reading in literacy class as if it's the news, and then have them put up a background behind them. So a couple options for this green screening type of situation. Flipgrid is not a completely green screen type of situation, but it does allow a little bit of video editing and it is free for your students. Another option is WeVideo, which does normally cost money, but during this pandemic, WeVideo has lifted their fees for schools. So that is an option for your students. Other options for green screenings do cost money. So if you're interested in more programs for green screening, we can definitely talk about them. I just wanted to, again, make you aware. Zoom is another option because you can do your virtual background on Zoom. So if you have a green screen, your kids can record it in Zoom. So do we have any other questions? The last question I see typed was what's the most popular among the students? All right. So I could take you out into Tour Builder just to show it to you a little bit more, because like I said, that is probably the favorite of students. Do you recommend this for any age? So the things that I'm showing you, it really depends on your student's ability. I would say Tour Builder, probably maybe fourth grade and up. Middle school will be more comfortable with it. If you are doing the Google Maps, I've seen second and third grade do it in the classroom. I'm not positive how easily the kids will be able to catch on from a distance. Did I see something about live shows? Yes, so the live shows are going to most likely be posted on things like Twitter and Facebook for the different museums and aquariums. Last week, Lin-Manuel from Hamilton fame did a live class for AP history. He actually did a Zoom call for students to just join in and listen to him talk history. Again, that was advertised on Twitter. So definitely, if you're not on social media, that is the best place to find these live events because that's normally where they're advertising them at this point. If you are on email lists for places like aquariums and zoos, I'm sure they're also emailing stuff out. So when you're in Tour Builder, as you can see, the website is tourbuilder.withgoogle.com. For those of you that don't know the difference between Google and with Google, the difference is with Google is their beta, and normally things that are newer will be in the with Google domain, but it is still Google. It is still under your G Suite accounts. Some of your school districts may have them shut off. So if that is the case, if you can't access something like Tour Builder, you would have to talk to your school's administration and work together to decide if it's something you want for your students. So when you start a virtual tour, it asks you for the tour name and the author name. So I am just going to call this tour Demo, and I am going to just list myself as the author, and I create the tour. So as you can see from the previous tour that I created, I obviously was at Citi Field in New York, but we're not going to start in Citi Field today. So I am going to click Add a Location, and because we were talking about colleges, I am going to start at Penn State. As I type Penn State in, you'll see it pulls up some possible engines. I'm going to click Penn State University, State College, and then I am going to add it to my tour. It asks about a start date and an end date because, again, this is a virtual tour, but you don't have to put dates. If your students are putting dates, maybe you might want them to put the first date of the fall semester. Tell your audience something about this. So we could say something about Penn State football. Obviously, I don't have research in front of me, but we could say something like tuition. I am totally guessing at this number, so if I'm wrong, I apologize. But you could do stuff like that. So you could say to your students, here are the pieces of information I want you to list. Then you could go and add another location, and we could add UCLA. And as you start typing UCLA, it pulls up UCLA Los Angeles, UCLA Law School. So you could see that it pulls up the different stuff. I add UCLA to my tour. I tell my audience about it. And so on and so on. When you actually want to play your tour, you click Done Editing. And now, as you can see, it starts at your introduction, which is just the zoomed out of the whole map. And as you click Next, it's going to zoom in. You do have the ability to zoom farther, zoom out. When you click Next, it's going to pull out. It's going to fly you to California, and it's going to zoom in again to UCLA. The more places you add, obviously, the longer the tour goes. You can then do a screenshot and actually record it so that your students can maybe navigate the virtual tour, showing all the things that they're doing in it. Sharing is just like any other Google Doc. So you could share with a link so only people who have abilities to see it. You can change it so that anyone with the link can see it, all different types of things. And I am going to look at more of the live shows and see if I can find any like static databases. If any of the news websites or education sites are kind of like tracking them and listing them, I will add that to the bit.ly resource if I can find it for you. I love these live shows. I think they're amazing. And a lot of people are putting them on right now for students just because they all know that they're kind of stuck. Will there be more virtual teaching webinars like this? Yes, Sarah. So what we're doing is every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, we're doing one of these half-hour sessions. If you have a topic that you're interested in, please let me know either through email or through the chat box here, because I am definitely looking for what's going to impact the classrooms the most. I want to be there to help you guys. Visual Sound wants to be there to help the teachers. We know that this is a time that's a little crazy for everyone. So if whatever we can do as a company to support the teachers in our region is what we're doing. And that's why we're hosting these webinars. So Sarah, what I have been doing is I have been trying I personally am collecting all the email addresses and I've been trying to send out those emails to let people know. You could also, if you go on that bit.ly, on the very top, there's a link that says webinar schedule. And that webinar schedule is where the calendar is for upcoming sessions. It also has the hours for my office hours because we're calling them Ask Me Anything. You can log in anytime during those hours and ask me stuff that you need to know. So again, this is today, the Taking Your Students on Virtual Field Trips. On Friday, I am doing pre-recorded lessons for asynchronous viewing. So we're going to talk about, obviously you can see in Google Meet, I am recording this right now and we're uploading it. So that's one method, but I'm going to show you a couple other methods of ways that you can do things with your students so that you can pre-record and just send your kids the videos if they can't all log in at the same time. Next week, just to move down the calendar quickly, we're doing STEM at home, followed by Google Quick Tips and Smart Notebook. For this demo, can I max zoom in on State College? Let me go back to the map. And if I go to Penn State, that is how close it gets to the parking lot at the football field. At least I'm assuming that's the football field's parking lot. I can zoom back out and double check. Yes. Nope, that's not the football field. That's the Bryce Jordan Center. But that is how far you can zoom in. You could almost read the parking spot numbers. You could also read the Google copyright. How would I embed the Penn State virtual college tour? So if Penn State has a virtual college tour that you would want to link, when you are editing your data, what you can do is you can put a link to it in the information. You can't actually embed their virtual tour, but you can link to it so that when someone is coming to this page of the tour, they can then click out and it would open it as a new tab in their browser. You are very welcome. Does anyone else have a question about creating virtual tours or finding resources to take virtual field trips? Melissa's interested in information for kindergarten. I would definitely say if you have a specific author that you enjoy with your students, look up their Facebook page and their Twitter account because a lot of authors are doing things directly. I know that J.K. Rowling has posted, and actually Daniel Radcliffe has started reading Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. So that is definitely something students might be interested in. For the younger grades, I know that a couple of Dr. Seuss books have been read by celebrities on YouTube videos. So that is something, doing the read alouds. Danny DeVito actually read the Lorax for Earth Day. So different stuff like that definitely would be good for kindergartners. I don't think kindergartners would be able to build their own tours, but you as the teacher could build one and send it to the parents to take with their students. You're welcome. Oh, another idea, if you have an older class that you're partnering with, maybe. So if you're teaching kindergarten, maybe you have a friend that's teaching high school. They could have their high school students create those virtual field trips for the elementary school students. So now you're letting the older kids support the younger kids. The younger kids are seeing what older kids are doing. So that's another great option to kind of involve everyone, work together, and just have some fun with all of this. It is now 12 o'clock. I would like to thank you all for coming to today's session. I know your time is valuable and I appreciate it. I will definitely be staying on for a few more minutes. I don't want any of you to think that I shut off exactly at noon. So if you have any more questions, I am still here for you. Thank you again for attending today's webinar. If you have any questions, visual, sound, and myself, you follow up with any of us and we will be happy to help you out. So Roger, when you're using the VR goggles, it really does give you that immersive experience. Sometimes the graphics are not much better than what you see on the computer screen. Sometimes the graphics really can trick your brain into thinking that you are in a virtual world. So it really depends on which goggles you get. Visual sound, we currently use or partner with a company called Class VR, and the quality of the video on Class VR is very nice. It definitely is something that you feel like you're in the location that you're looking at. Google Expeditions is another one that you can really get some good stuff from. It just really again depends. Yes, Monica, pen pals are under education for Skype. There are also pen pal options for Google Meet. Unfortunately, Google does not have as easy of a database. If you are interested in pen pals using Google, I would recommend going on Twitter and using the hashtag Google Meets or Google Pen Pals. Yes, Anna, this is being recorded right now. What will happen is after I hit stop, I will be uploading it to YouTube. Probably by 2 o'clock it should be on YouTube, but please don't hold me to that as a hard deadline because things can come up and it might not happen till later. But yes, it will be up on YouTube and it will be on the Bitly. Do you need a school account to access Tour Builder? No, you do not need a school account to access Tour Builder. Tour Builder is a free Google tool. In fact, the only reason I would recommend using your school account is just because the school Google accounts do fall under stricter protections for privacy. So if you ever notice when you're even doing a Google search, if you're logged into your school account, you will never get those advertisements on the top or the sponsored search results. That's because school accounts just have that privacy setting. So I will be back at 2 o'clock for actually 1 o'clock for office hours. So if you have any questions about anything, it doesn't have to be virtual tours. It could be anything related to technology. So Anna, if you go to the bit.ly that I posted, it will be linked in there.
Okay.
It is also at the bottom of the schedule. There's a link that says archive recordings.
Thank you.
You are very welcome. Roger, Tour Builder is definitely a great one to use for global cultural awareness. If you're doing it with high school seniors, I would look at the Google Earth one. Again, there is more of a learning curve, but the graphics on it are incredible if your students can understand how to do it. There are YouTube videos, tutorials. It's just not as point and click. So it's a little harder for them to kind of teach themselves. And if you go on the bit.ly, I do have a link to Google Earth for Education where they have a ton of resources for all of Google Maps, My Maps, Tour Builder, Google Earth, everything. So definitely check out that resource because it will help you figure out the best way to work with the students. All right, I am going to end the recording now because it seems like the room has emptied out. There are a couple people still in here. I am not going to run away. So if you have a question, you could ask.